tonight with new information in the tragic death of 22-month-old Cooper Harris. Was Cooper murdered, left alone to die in a baking hot car by his own father? Investigators are now set to turn over their evidence to the district attorney. But tonight, the clock is ticking. The DA has about 60 days to secure an indictment before Harris is guaranteed to walk on bond. And even after baby Cooper's death makes headlines, parents are still leaving their children alone in hot cars. Tonight's shocking video out of Katy, Texas, shows a group of shoppers bashing in a car window to save two children trapped in a 90-degree car. Where is the mother? Well, she's getting a haircut.
Harris's electronic footprints, child-free lifestyle, how to survive in prison.
Death of animals in hot cars.
Shoppers in a strip center parking lot taking matters into their own hands after noticing two small children in a hot Jeep.
And we go to Newton, North Carolina. A teacher of the year and high school counselor is found dead in her own home. The final hours of young Maggie Daniels' life is caught on tape as police are now releasing this surveillance photo in search of her killer.
Investigators looking for a killer. Counselor and coach at Discovery High School from Ohio.
She alive or dead?
And she's a real nice person.
Some idea of who was the last to see Maggie Daniels alive.
And the search for a missing young Savannah girl. All of her belongings stay at her home, as well as her important medication. Police need your help. Where is Alice Davis? Good evening. I'm Jean Casares in for Nancy Grace. Thank you so much for joining us. We begin tonight with the death of toddler Cooper Harris, left to die in a baking hot car in the parking lot by his father. As the investigation continues, we are learning tonight law enforcement is set to turn over that evidence to prosecutors. Joining us, investigative reporter Brett Larson. Brett, what do we know at this point?
You know, it's still very tragic. As you mentioned there off the top, you know, he is sitting there without bond. He is waiting for more information. Now, the prosecutors are going actually back to that car, back to what they are calling the scene of the crime, to try and recreate the events, to try and figure out what went wrong that day, to try and figure out if he, in fact, forgot that his son was in the car or if he intentionally left his son in that hot car on that incredibly hot day in Georgia.
You know, Michael Christian, I think what we are seeing through Brett Larson's reporting is that there are actually two investigations going on right now. You've got the police department, Cobb County Police Department. You've also got the district attorney's office that is really doing their own investigation right now. And that's evident, Michael, because of that hot car that they put to launch their own experiment.
That's right, Gene. In theory, the Cobb County Police Department is supposed to finish its investigation and then turn over what it's discovered to the DA's office, and then they'll conduct a separate independent one. But we know there's at least some concurrent stuff going on because, as you say, the DA's office investigators checked out, if you will, from the evidence locker, from the evidence pound, the car for one day from the Cobb County PD. They tested temperatures at various points through the day. They did some measurements in the car. Then they turned the car back to the Cobb County the Cobb County PD. So obviously there's at least, you know, some hint of both investigations going on at the same time. And once Cobb County PD signs off on this case, then the Cobb County DA's office will conduct a full independent investigation.
And Michael, what is that timeline right now? Because this case is going to a grand jury.
Yes, I'd be very surprised if it doesn't. And here's the thing. From the time of Mr. Harris's arrest, he's got 90 days before a jury has to come back with an indictment before he can be guaranteed bond. Now, right now, he's being held without bond. That expires after 90 days, and they have to offer him at least the hope of bond. So right now, we're up on day 27. That means there are 63 days to go before we have to get an indictment, or he'll be able to get out, perhaps, on bond.
To Nanette Sosa, reporter with News Radio 106.7, you know, we're talking about the wife. At today, as these investigations continue, as this case proceeds to quite potentially the grand jury proceeding, where is the mother in all of this today?
Deanna Harris, last I heard, was headed and is in Alabama with her own mother. And as far as employment and work, that's up in the air. But last I heard is that she had headed over to Alabama. She has hired an attorney to help her out, Lawrence Zimmerman, who's very well versed, especially when it comes to computer forensics types of investigations. And that's all we're pretty much hearing from Leanna Harris.
So she is out of the jurisdiction. She is out of the state. To Kenya Johnson, prosecutor, joining us from Georgia, right there in the heart of it. What do prosecutors need to charge her criminally with something?
Well, to be a party to a crime, you can play a part in a case either before the incident occurred, during the commission of the crime, or even afterwards. So prosecutors will be looking at her activities afterward, before, and during. And particularly, she's made several comments that are very questionable. And so we'd be looking into, did she hide evidence? Did she research evidence? Did they talk about it? Did they plan it? And what her part was in the crime before we charge her.
And right now, we believe that the police department is going through computers and iPhones and cell phones and anything else that they can get the written word on, or her communications or her state of mind. Robert McDonough, defense attorney, joining us from Atlanta, Georgia, right in the heart of it. Do you think that we don't know exactly what's going to happen in this case? Because everybody's wondering if she will be charged, but the investigation is what provides those answers.
Yeah, I think it's too early to tell at this stage. And the state also, they have to be worried if they do indict her and she becomes co-defendant and then she invokes her Fifth Amendment, that they wouldn't be able to use her testimony against her husband. So they've got a balancing test that they're weighing. First, do they have enough evidence to arrest her, which it doesn't appear that they do at this time. And second, if it's close, do they even want to go that route?
To defense attorney Robert Schock, do you think that they are tracking her at all right now? Do you think that they are monitoring her to see if there are any leads that they can get that way?
Oh, absolutely. She's going to leave a footprint, whether that be with the cell phones, Facebook, any social media accounts. They're going to want to compile as much evidence as they can against her because, again, as the other attorneys noted, we don't know whether or not what their intentions are. Are they going to charge her? And if they do, are they going to lean on her to cooperate? Are they going to threaten prosecution with an eye towards cooperation? So they're absolutely interested in every step she takes and every word she utters.
You know, Michael Christian, I want to know more about this defendant, Justin Ross Harris. I want to know his background. I want to know, where has he worked, Michael Christian?
He has had several jobs since he got out of high school in the late 90s. He worked, interestingly, at a television station in Tuscaloosa, where he's from. But apparently after only 2 months, he was asked to resign. Now, all we know from their personnel records is, quote, he was told that he wasn't suitable for the job. He worked at Clear Channel Radio as a soundboard operator. He worked for a while at Coca-Cola, where he was a merchandiser. In 2001, he began to work at the University of Alabama. He worked as a parking monitor there and also a mail delivery clerk. And then finally, and this is the most significant, from 2006 until 2009, he worked for the Tuscaloosa Police Department as a police dispatcher. So you'd think someone with police experience, especially dispatching experience, would have immediately called 911 when something went wrong on June 18th, but he didn't.
All right, to Romani Durvasula, a clinical psychologist, if you work as a police dispatcher, you're getting, receiving, and communicating 911 calls, and you don't make a 911 call on your own son when you've had that experience? That takes us to a different level.
It does take us to a different level, and so many of the pieces in this case aren't adding up. Absolutely. He knows exactly how police dispatch works, and for him to not make that call is like a lot of the other oversights in this call. And again, Gene, there's one of two issues here. Even in the case of neglect here, so much of his conduct here, the text messaging and the other behaviors he's engaged in, we really have to wonder, was this deliberate? Was this neglect? And he had the background to know what to do. As a psychologist, it makes me very suspicious.
Kenya Johnson, prosecutor, will that come into a trial, his past employment, if he does not take the stand?
Absolutely. If it comes to where we want to show that he has a problem with commitment or sticking with goals, or he's had issues at any of those jobs, we can absolutely have those witnesses come in to talk about some of the problems that he's had before.
Brett Larson, we understand that tonight he is in the mental health ward of the jail. He's no bail.
Yes.
We know that. Why is he in the mental health ward?
You know, that is actually the only part we know. He was moved to the mental health ward. They weren't saying exactly for why. But, you know, I wanted to mention again those internet searches and these traps. I mean, these are going to be some very telling pieces of evidence. Everywhere we now go online is trackable and traceable. And this is going to be an interesting case because it's going to prove that a lot of us don't have as much privacy as we think we have.
And the state of mind can definitely show intent. To Robert Schock, defense attorney, why is he being put in the mental health ward tonight as we speak? I would think he would have been in protective custody from the beginning.
Well, there's too many things to speculate about here. He could be in the mental health ward because he's a threat to himself, suicide, some other, you know, he could have mental health issues that we don't know about. Obviously, HIPAA laws are going to protect that information from being released. He also could be in danger from other inmates. So again, to sit here and speculate, we don't know. Obviously, it raises a red flag, and it could also be something of whether or not his defense team thinks that there's something else at play here, that he has some sort of mental issues that could be coming up in his defense.
And the jail is not confirming that he is in the mental health ward, but that is what is being reported from inside Atlanta. Let's go to Michelle in Canada. We have got callers. Michelle, good evening.
Oh, hello. Jean, can I please ask the panel or whomever, just wondering, I think Leanne, she played a part in little Cooper's death, and if so, what part did she play?
You know, that's the pivotal question right there. No question about it. Kenya Johnson, as a prosecutor, you are now waiting for the police department's investigation. You are conducting your own investigation. You're not sitting around waiting for the Cobb County Police Department to hand you over everything they have. What are you looking at? What do you want to find on this mother to see if she is criminally responsible at all?
Well, definitely looking at her criminal history will tell a lot about her patterns of behavior.
She has no criminal history that we know of.
As well as looking at her behavioral history. That might be interviewing friends, interviewing coworkers, looking at her work history, seeing has there been any other issues in the past where she has lied, where she's been untrustworthy, where she's been reckless. And with that type of information, we can link a pattern of behavior and link it to what she may have done in this case.
Another parent accused of leaving their baby in a sweltering hot car, this time in Forest Park, Georgia, where a father is arrested at the courthouse accused of leaving his 3-month-old baby in the car.
Oh my God, what have I done? My child is dead.
Screaming and crying, and then he would stop. And then he'd notice somebody walk by, and then he'd start screaming and crying again.
2 small children in a hot Jeep. One guy used a hammer to smash open the window.
3-month-old Deja locked in her father's car on a hot day.
Now, to some people, this story has 2 sides. I want you to listen to both sides here. Joining us right now tonight is Nanette Sosa, reporter with News Radio 106.7. What are the facts, Nanette?
It's understood that the man had a court appearance over in an area called Clayton County, which is about 30 miles to the south of us right here in Cobb County. He had a court appearance. He took the car carrier to the courthouse with him, Mr. Lamont.
With the baby in it, right, Nanette? He took the baby into the courthouse.
The first time he did, so he says, he understood that he was told he was not allowed to bring the child into the courthouse. He takes the child back, puts the child in the car, then proceeds to his court hearing. Court officials are saying not accurate. He was told to take the child out of the car carrier, for the car carrier to go through the metal detector, and then he was allowed to proceed. So there is conflicting information there. But his choice was, from a parent's point of view anyway, a poor choice, because here he's already at court for a reason. Then he takes the child, puts the child in his car, and proceeds to court, which has only now caused bigger problems, because this man's already facing issues with cocaine possession, has already served time in jail in the past, and now he has bigger problems by making a poor decision.
All right, so Patrick McDonough, defense attorney out of Atlanta, this man, his state of mind was that he was going to take his baby into the courthouse. And some communication got fouled up because they told him take the baby out of the car seat. He says he thought they said you can't take the baby at all in the car seat into the courthouse. He had a court date. There's 2 sides to this story.
There's no question there's two sides of the story. And look, it was still a poor choice. He should have tried to make other arrangements, but he's facing a bench warrant if he doesn't go to court. And if he's just got to run up and sign a not guilty plea and leave, he probably thinks I can leave the child and come out. I've represented these clients in the past, God-fearing, wonderful, good people that sometimes think, hey, I can just go in quickly and get something done and come back out. It's good that we're getting this word out that it is dangerous, but I'm telling you, there are good people that make mistakes. And this, he thought he was doing it at the direction of a police officer.
But Kenya Johnson, I've got to ask you before we go to break. This man's been charged with a felony, and the woman who's getting her hair done isn't charged with anything. Isn't there something wrong with that?
Well, ignorance is no excuse of the law, and so even though he felt that he couldn't come into the courthouse, he's been in court before. He's a 3-time convicted felon. He's seen children in court on plenty of occasions. The answer is don't go to court that day. The consequence of missing court is surely not as great as it is what he's facing now. As far as the mom that ran away from getting her hair done, I suspect that they will locate who that mom is and charges will be forthcoming. In this day and age, there's no reason why people know or don't know that you can't leave a kid in the car even for a second.
We want to show everybody right now something we found. It is a public service announcement on your child in a hot car. Watch this. Watching video from Red Castle Productions.